Hi there, and it's 7 o'clock UK time. It's time for a live, and we don't have Richard Smith with us today. No, we don't. We have the Kent Carnivore. Basically, Richard has been at the War on Health, as have I. We both spoke this afternoon, and I asked Lee if he would take Richard's place because Richard right now is hot-footing it across the country back down to Wales. So, Lee, hello.
How you doing, mate? All right. How did it all go
Yeah.
for you?
It went very well. My voice is a little bit croaky because I was waffling on for an hour, which is good. It's nice to meet actual people in the flesh. After
Yeah,
doing so many of these things, you forget that people are flesh and bones and can shake your hand, and
yeah, of
it's
course, of
great.
course.
So, Instagram is telling me something, but anyway, right. So, yes, how's your day been or your Easter?
Yeah, not too bad actually. Yeah, it's just a little bit of a time out, really. I mean, if I knew about my surgery and all this kind of rescheduling, I would have perhaps tried to get up there and see everyone. I've got a bit of a family thing tomorrow, and it's quite difficult, so with my bag situation to travel. If I knew in advance,
Yeah.
I probably would fast and then try and prepare properly. But
Mm,
yeah, I've got a
yeah.
thing tomorrow, kind of thing. So yeah, a bit of a shame I
Yeah,
couldn't meet some of you lot.
yeah, I mean, just for the people that don't know, could you give us a really brief sort of overview of what you're talking about with your surgery?
Yeah, so I've had ileostomy surgery over 7 years ago now. My colon was riddled with disease, and that was due to having ulcerative colitis, which was really quite aggressive, certainly in the last 3 years, even though I had medication and stuff like that. But essentially, plants destroyed my colon, and they triggered everything, all the symptoms that are associated with IBD, whether it's Crohn's or colitis. The fiber, and also things like gluten and wheat probably would have been an issue and stuff like that. And since having the surgery, I've actually had multiple diets, and I've been able to see what does and doesn't break down what would have potentially been inflammatory for my condition. And it wasn't actually until I became depressed that I decided to try carnivore, and that relieved me of my depression. But in addition to that, I've just got so much relief now. I don't have any kind of discomfort, trapped wind, and obstructions. Which, when you have this surgery, you're actually more inclined to have more obstructions because of the nature of the way my body's set up now. It has to kind of kink around this quite aggressive corner just to enter the bags, kind of thing. And I was having issues with multiple plants, and it's funny, in the back of my head, I was thinking, red meat, I'm sure that's an issue, but red meat breaks down 100%. And by the time it leaves the stomach acid it's pretty much liquidized and ready to be absorbed in the small intestine, which obviously I still have intact. So I gain all the nutrients and the benefit of that. But as it enters the colon, it's liquefied. And obviously for regular people with their colon, they would reabsorb the water and the sodium, etc. And then you just recognize, a normal, healthy looking stool. I don't have that sort of luxury, if you like. I'm obviously seeing it as it would enter the colon, so it's quite liquidy, if you like. And I have adjusted some things, and I think my body's kind of adapted to this way of eating and stuff like that. So now I'm feeling optimal, and digestion is optimal. I just wish I could go back and tell my old self, stop eating all these fibrous carbohydrates, basically. And obviously, all these people that I talk to now with IBD, so many of them have relief of symptoms they get off medication, and that's fantastic. That's what we want to do. We want to try and reach people that are in dire straits with all sorts of ailments, really. But definitely IBD is something that I can tell you, 100%, there's no doubt about it. If you adopt a line diet, for sure, even eggs, if you can do eggs and things like that, fish, that stuff breaks down, and it's so easy on the system. You're going to gain all the nutrients that we need without any of the inflammation. And most likely, you're sitting there with Crohn's and colitis, you'll be out of trouble. And hopefully, obviously some people, they take longer to resolve certain issues. But I think many of us, we get into remission pretty fast, and we stay in remission for very long periods of time, even compared to strong steroids that are prescribed. They don't even compare to a carnivore diet. So
Yeah, and brilliant, and that's why you're on, because you're so eloquent and honest about what happened. I mean, it was great today because we did this War on Health thing, and
mm,
you meet people in real life who've had their life changed, and you said, "Oh, we should known about this years ago." Well, the audience was older than you,
mm,
and they were all finding this way of eating, in the main, they were older than you, and it's life changing for them. And I didn't find this till I was 50. So 10 years ago, I
Yeah.
would have
You'd have been
been.
Superman if you found it at 20, wouldn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. It's crazy. Anyway, I how this works is we do have questions and comments, so we'll go through those. If you want to duck out of a question, it's not a problem. But let's do this thing. So
Sure.
Matthew here, who's a big fan of what Richard does and a great person on our school community. So hi, Matthew. One of Dr. Lisa Wiedemann's videos, she recommends No Brainer Carnivore book by C.G. Sims, a retired federal agent, lifelong nutrition and fitness enthusiast. Have you heard of him or read his book? Right. Well, firstly, because I was talking about books today, this is quite a good book. I wrote this, How to Be a Carnivore. So, that's a good book if you're interested. Now, that sold out today at the conference.
Oh, well, nice.
I haven't heard of that. Have you heard of
I
No
haven't
Brainer
heard of that,
Carnivore?
no. I haven't. I know who obviously Dr. Lisa Wiedemann is, but I haven't heard of
Yeah.
that book, actually.
Yeah. Well, I'm having Dr. Lisa come on in a couple of weeks' time. We're doing an interview. In fact, she was due to be interviewed today, but I had the talk. So
Right, okay.
we had to move it. Right. So, Matthew, as always, brilliant. Now, I'm reading in your comment that you possibly haven't read it yet or got it, and you're wondering what we think of it. But if you have actually got it and read it, I wouldn't mind that. And if you're listening and you've read it, tell us what you think. Right, now, this is another thing. Now, in the carnivore community, sometimes things pass you by, and someone will mention someone, and you have no idea, and then you realize they're really big. So this Liver King thing, I did not know anything about the Liver King until vague about it now, but I think he died. And
No, he's still with us, I think.
yeah, well, what was the big deal then? He was on steroids or something.
Yeah,
That
that's
was it,
exactly
wasn't
it.
it?
Yeah, he's just clearly enhanced. There's no way human physiology allows the body to, adapt to that degree without some kind of exogenous adrenal like hormones, anabolic steroids and
Yes.
stuff like this. So, I mean, why did he lie? I can only think money, and clout and attention and things like that. I think he kind of conflated this whole primal. I think obviously he ate a lot of animal products, but his thing was to shock people and eat a lot of raw products, and then kind of attribute to why he looks the way he does. Because I guess he was assuming, well, most people don't do this, and so prove me wrong. Who's going to try and take on all this raw meat and organs and stuff every day? And it was kind of exposed. I think what was his name, Derek from More Plates, More Dates. He's got a YouTube channel. He's quite specialized in all of the pharmaceuticals and things like that. He seems to have developed quite a passion for that. And so he saw something, I can't remember how it happened now, but he kind of broke it down and thought, no, you're lying. And he kind of exposed him. And then he came out and sort of apologized, which, is
All
inevitable.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he's still with us, though.
All right, cool. Yeah, I mean, I've seen pictures, and there's no way that's not performance-enhancing drugs.
Yeah.
But yes, you're right. You addressed why did he lie? Well, yes, it could be money. It could be because they're embarrassed to take those things. I really don't know.
Yeah,
But
I don't know what it is about that actually with, performing athletes and stuff, certainly bodybuilders and stuff like that. They get to a point and I don't know why not be transparent? I think people would respect a person more, just say, well, look, I don't advocate for this. It's not exactly a healthy thing to do, but I'm not natural. I'm enhanced, but obviously I also do work hard and I eat right. And that's what I advocate for, don't do as I say entirely, but do, what I suggest, but maybe take that advice. But I don't really know. It's probably an ego thing. I'm not too sure, but yeah, they're not fooling anyone.
Yeah, I mean, I did the natty route, as they call it, the natural route. I did one bodybuilding show, and I was quite happy with what I did. But obviously, I was in a gym where the natural show ran concurrently with a non-natural show, shall we say? So my training partner went on to do Mr. Britain, and it was all natural. But the guys that were juicing, they look better. I mean, they did. They look bigger. But I'm not saying to do it. I'm just saying.
No, exactly.
Right, Rick has got here was just with Jonathan. Now that's the 40-year plus carnivore there. I'm assuming you've been interviewed by Carnivore Muscle, so that's good. Most people are wishing us happy Easter, so that's good.
Okay.
Let's have a look. Thank you for the Easter wishes. Oh well, hang on a minute. This is so. Rick's following up what you said. If I'd have found it at 20, I would be Superman by now. Well, he found it at 15, and he never became Superman.
No, but you are to
So
many people, Rick. I think so many people know who you are, and your story is so inspirational. You become quite the famous carnivore amongst the community. So much
yeah.
respect.
And the thing is, he's a real giver. He comes on and comments and gets involved, and he's always funny. He's never nasty about anyone if they ask a question that's really basic. And that's one of the things I think that shines through the whole community is that
Mm.
it's very supportive. I mean, one of the things. Sorry to go on about today, but I mean, it's not every weekend
No,
I'm out
no,
doing
for
talks
sure.
and stuff like that. I came back really exhausted, but in a really nice way because the positivity was absolutely coming at me like a tsunami. It was so many
Mm.
people thanking me, and this sounds like I'm bragging, and it isn't. I'm
No,
just
no,
trying to
no.
get across, the community. I'm talking about everybody, coming up, tapping me on the shoulder. Thanks for what you do. It's really great, all that stuff. And
Mhm.
there was a couple of things that I got a bit choked about, and it is amazing.
Yeah,
And you meet new people all the time. So Lee, you're new to me. You see, now you're massive, massive following and getting lots of views, and I didn't know about you. And it was
yeah,
only, I think, with Team GB, really. So
yeah. It's strange, isn't it? That.
yeah, and you're a fountain of information. Matthew says, I understand about bowel issues. I haven't had surgery like Lee, but I have trouble traveling some days. Yeah, that's the urgency and needing to know where a toilet is all the time, isn't it?
So I don't ever get that physical urgency now. I don't have that. I'm kind of relieved of that. But there is another kind of physical urgency, and that's the capacity of the bag and also the weight. I mean, I don't like to let it just fill up, and I quite like to keep it under a threshold, if you like, and to get on a
Mm.
long coach journey and planes and trains and all this kind of stuff. That's always a little bit of a put off for me. It kind of deters me from going too far. So my circles are quite small.
I mean, the bags thing is good in that you are proof that meat dissolves
Yeah,
and
yeah,
plant material doesn't. Not the greatest thing. I'm sure you'd not want that information, rather not have a bag, but you
exactly.
have, and you give that information out, and that's constant. I mean, over the years, I've now been 15 years in rehab, 10 years low carb, 5 years carnivore, and yeah, at least once a month, someone will say to me, I've got a colostomy bag from fibers ruined me. And it took a long time for me to realize that the bad foods were the things that you are saying are bad. And because even after having the bag, they still felt fiber
Oh,
was needed. And,
it's crazy. I don't know why we didn't sort of think of that or why it took that. Even for professionals that are getting paid fortunes to sort of help and when it's necessary, obviously urgent situations like I was in with my surgery. But even after you come out on the other side, they give you that same menu with all the same foods. It seems crazy. It really is,
mm,
but it is the way it is.
it is the way it is. Greetings from Scotland at 8. Yes, I had someone today from Scotland who was taking a 5-hour journey back. Gaza here, very tongue in cheek, saying that he was on a high cyanide diet prior to carnivore, cassava and all that sort of stuff, which we have been speaking about. So what's he saying here? What's the sign? Cyanide binds to hemoglobin, correct? Yeah. What happens to the cyanide once said red blood cells reaches the end of its service life? Metabolized safely, or so we're going to go through this.
It destroys
Yeah,
your mitochondria, doesn't it? We know that. It blocks ATP and destroys mitochondria and well, pretty much does what sugar does over decades. It does in seconds or minutes, perhaps.
yeah. I
It
mean, I
leads
did a little bit of research for a very big influencer. Maybe I shouldn't say, so I won't say about cyanide. And it's when you get into the weeds, the CDC and the WHO do not put any safe limit on cyanide consumption. In fact, they're quite the
yeah,
reverse. They don't categorically go 0 is the recommended amount of cyanide, but they do if you read the papers properly and read all the sort of agendas and there's even the possibility, they believe, of causing diabetes. Many populations they mention with some horrific results from having too much cyanide, but small amounts, really small amounts. So yeah, and cassava comes.
Calm almonds were my thing to snack on as well. And even though they've sort of hybridized them and changed them and altered them, there's like small doses of cyanide. And if you're having kind of like a handful every now and again, it's like a daily thing for me as well. So
yeah, slow release poison.
Yeah.
Right, Matthew, you are a strong man, Lee. Many people believe there is no hope. You are an inspiration. You should be proud of yourself.
Many thanks, mate. Appreciate that.
Well, and it's absolutely true. Right, here we go. Sean Connery land. Yes. Wow. There you go. I did my world famous impression. Yeah. Now Rick is saying my ignorance of him was enhanced when I looked at him, and basically the first picture I ever saw, because I looked it all up, all this talk, and I thought, how can anyone think he's not on steroids? You know, to me, it's really obvious. But anyway, right. Wow, we've definitely jumped on a vein of interest here. Didn't Liver King have implants for a six-pack? I don't know about that.
Maybe. I mean, it looks kind of like it. I know what you're saying. They almost kind of protrude more than just a very well-built abdominal structure even for someone with great genetics and on steroids. You know, I know what you're saying. I don't know though.
Yeah, I know. I think Dr. Kevin Stock, who definitely is 100% natural.
Fantastic. Yeah,
his abs look unreal, and that's through diet and unreal amounts of being strict and training and stuff like that. So you can have abs that look unreal, and they are actually real. Right. Let's move on from the Liver King, shall we? Isn't it the case it's illegal to use in the USA? So sponsoring legal woes, if honest. That is again about the Liver King, isn't it? So I won't put that up on the screen. The Jonathan and Lee interview just aired. Oh, okay. Was you on Carnivore Muscle? Was you?
Yes, but I thought actually that came out a while ago. It's on like a members section, unless he's taken it off of it. I don't know. Okay.
Did you talk about your what's the word? Your surgery and everything?
Yeah, my ostomy bag and that kind of stuff. Yeah, he just jumped straight in with that. Actually, why do you have a bag? Oh, okay. yeah. We get into some details there.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that you taught me is about the little clips that you can get from big shows and stuff like that. And Curb Your Enthusiasm has just done an episode where the lead character makes a joke about another character having a colostomy bag, and then he finds out that he probably has actually really got one. So there was loads of clips I wanted to send you, and they're talking about what's the best way to approach this. But anyway,
that would be good to add in, wouldn't it? Just as a little bit of a cutaway or something.
Yeah,
in the video.
Right. Matthew, so we're having an ongoing conversation. It's Easter, and there are no hard questions so far, so I'm quite happy. Matthew saying, Stephen, I haven't read No Brainer Carnivore, but I'm tempted to order it. I enjoyed your Build Muscle Carb-Free ebook. Are you releasing an audio version of your Carnivore book? Well, actually, the book I was promoting today was the Guide to Blood Tests. Now, I have an audio version of my diabetes book, but it isn't me narrating. And that's only available on my store, because people like Amazon, and you'll be really pleased to know this, and Apple will not accept an audio book unless a human has read it, which I think is really good. So I had a few bits of AI reading my diabetes book. So anyway, yes, long story short is I will be doing the audio book version, and I am toying with leaving the mistakes in, because it's a very onerous task to be standing here for 8 hours reading the book that you've written and therefore know inside out, and make it sound like you're saying it for the first time, which, you know, I can't pay talent to come in and do it because it's expensive. It's, you know, to get somebody professionally to read it. So I started to do some paragraphs and introductions and stuff, and stumbled a bit, and I thought, should I keep that in? So just in the comments, If you had an audio book and there was the occasional faux pas, someone stumbling over their words, would it put you off the audio book, or would you just think, yeah, well, it's being read live and it's great and it's wonderful, just out of interest? Because if you all disappoint me and say you need it to be word perfect, then it's going to take about 5 times as long. But anyway, I would do it because I want to do it. Anyway, right, Jim McKay. Any personal advice on teaching others the PhD, which is the proper human diet? Any personal success stories? I have only one, and that is my twin brother. Everybody else seems to be skeptical of anything not from their doctor. Lee, do you want to go first? I mean, I've got
Yeah.
loads.
I mean, I always just try and talk about what food is and what it should be. I know there's obviously a dictionary definition, but for me, food should always be non-inflammatory. It should always offer your body complete nourishment. And so if you express that to somebody who's skeptical, and you can kind of say to them that actually red meat does contain all of the essentials, you know, you can add eggs and things like that, have some fish, and it's not going to cause inflammation. There's no sugar, there's no anti-nutrients, there's no lectins and plant protein, anything that's problematic. So, and you know, you might get into a conversation where they're saying, well, what about vegetables? You know, they're healthy. We've been told by all these big associations, the Dietetic Association and all this kind of stuff, that, you know, we need so many fruits and vegetables daily coming in. But the truth is that they don't contain all of the essential fatty acids and proteins. They miss a hell of a lot of micronutrients, and the micronutrients that are present aren't very bioavailable for multiple reasons. You've got sugar, you've got fiber, you've got anti-nutrients, and you're having to make conversions a lot of the time from a non-human compatible form, if you like, to make available now in the human body. And some of those percentages, once converted, are so low, you'd have to eat a tremendous amount of this stuff, in which case you're getting far too many carbohydrates, you're getting far too much fiber, and again, it just goes on and on and on. So to me, I always just say, you know, there's no essential plants, there's no essential carbohydrates, fibers, or polyphenols. Every single essential nutrient required for optimal human health can be found and is found within fatty red meat, and fat is very important because you're getting that balance. That is the balanced diet. If you look at an egg, you've got the fats, you've got the proteins, and you've got the micronutrients. That's like a steak, say like a ribeye steak. You cook that in ghee or beef dripping or something like that. That is a balanced diet because you're getting a full spectrum, all in the right kind of ratios, if you like. Some maybe not so optimal where we age them, and you know, there's not as much blood and stuff like this. But if you're having a mixed carnivorous diet with meat, eggs, maybe some butter, maybe some fish, you are hitting all of your macro and micronutrient needs without causing any inflammation. So that's how I go about expressing that when someone's not quite, you know, on the same page, or they're confused about why they should take advice, say, from me, or, you know, why should I believe that? They can go and look this stuff up. You know, all of the essentials, the nutrients, are found within red meat and eggs, and we can't say the same honestly about every single edible plant all in one bowl in one sitting. You would be short of so many nutrients. You know, B12, B6, D3, K2, heme iron, retinol, CoQ10, carnitine, carnosine. It goes on, DHA, EPA. It goes on and on and on. And so that's how I would go from a nutrient perspective. Usually, is how I talk about these things.
Yeah, and I think that's a great answer. If you're getting into the science and the nutrition of it, you could also say, well, hang on a minute. See, I think there's different ways to talk to different people depending on what will make them wake up. If you went out, just say to them, well, I'll tell you what, if we go out to the forest, you go and eat everything that you find in the forest. How safe do you think it'll all be? Would you be worried about eating things? Right. Okay. Okay. Then we'll go out and we'll go and kill a goat and we'll eat it. We'll be worried about the poisons and compounds in the goat. Now that's a bit tough to say to somebody. But here's the truth. It's frightening how many plants are poisonous. It's a huge percentage. If you go onto Google, they will lie to you. And I've actually interrogated ChatGPT because they reckoned across the planet there were 700,000 plants that were safe to eat. But in the wording, it opened itself to being questioned. So I did. I said, oh, so can I just clarify? There are 700,000 plants that are absolutely 100% safe to eat. I can go and eat that amount. And there was a lot of backtracking. And it was like, no, that's an estimate. If you want how many are actually safe to eat, and it was pitiful. It really was. It was something like 97% of plant material is not safe and effective
Mm.
in your body. It's a real small amount. So you could look at it like that. You could also look at history. You could say that humans have been eating animal flesh and animal fats for over 350,000 years, absolutely proven with
Mm.
what's called stable isotope testing of long bones. And that's long bones of every single sort of human on every type of continent as well.
Mm.
And always comes back with at least 80% of their diet was animal proteins and fats. So we've been eating that way for 350,000 years. You could look at people getting fatter and sicker now. Why have they started to get fatter and sicker? Because that's pretty much obvious. You only got to look down the high street when you go out shopping that people are getting fatter and sicker. Well, wasn't like that in the 1950s. What happened in the 1970s when it all started to go bad? Well, that's when we started the low fat fad. That's when that started.
Mm.
So common sense, you could appeal to common sense. Look at everybody. They're all doing what they're told. They're avoiding red meat and saturated fat and butter. And look at them. Look at the state of them. So there's lots of different ways. As to go through your question there, that's our advice on teaching others about the PhD. But there's many other ways of doing it. Put them onto YouTube, onto Ken Berry, who termed the PhD name, which is good. Any personal success stories? Yes, me, Lee. He's got a personal success story. Me, I was pre-diabetic, getting fatter, coronary artery calcium scan 639. Everything going south up until I started to go low carb, then keto, then carnivore. At 55, I went carnivore. 5 years later, best I've ever felt. I have success stories on my YouTube. Do you, Lee? Do you have success stories on your channel?
I did a compilation of things like that. I haven't really, other than Jonathan, who I've interviewed, I haven't really got any sort of major success stories. But I mean, my mum's gone carnivore. My brother's now full carnivore. I have some friends that have resolved type 2 diabetes very, very easily for obvious reasons. Some people that have just increased red meat and decreased things like grains and seed oils, they notice huge differences. And even people, actually, I've got a neighbor down the road here. He never had any real complaints, but he did like carnivore for like 6 weeks, had a bit of a family social do, and kind of a when in Rome type situation. He was just eating little bits of everything. And from someone who had no qualms, the next day was saying, oh, wow, I now have this sensation in my gut and I'm feeling all sluggish. I've got a headache. I've got this, I've got that. And so even people that don't know that they're suffering, they go carnivore, perhaps they come off of it, they introduce some other foods into their diet, and then all of a sudden it's kind of like, oh, wow, I had no idea I was inflamed. I had no idea that I was just adapted to this kind of toxic way of eating, where obviously I was quite fortunate, perhaps with my genetics, but yeah. So, I mean, and obviously amongst the community, there's just endless anecdotes, which is collective statistical data. It's not just, my opinion or something. No, like there's a lot of truth to it.
Yeah, I agree. You touched on something I mentioned today in the conference, which is we are not fat adapted or adapted to this way of eating. We adapted to the wrong way of eating. So if you did high carb, you did all the grains and all that, that's not how we eat. How we eat is what we're eating. If you're carnivore, doing lion, doing keto, ketovore, that's the proper way to eat. Simple as that. It really is as simple as that. So I don't call myself fat adapted or adapted carnivore. I think that I was trying desperately to adapt to eating lots of carbohydrates and I couldn't. And that's why most people have problems. Their carbohydrate metabolism just can't do it, basically, with that amount of carbs. I do have over 1,000 success stories as reviews and about 150 videos on my channel of people reversing type 2 diabetes, getting off dialysis. Yes, I've got 3 people that got off dialysis, reversing MS, all through this way of eating. So there's hundreds of success stories. So yeah, there's
really
loads.
Things like that.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Yeah.
And I think Eric Berg, if you're interested, it's keto. I think he's got 7,740 or something like that. MeatRx, Revere, Sean Baker's channel has maybe 2,000-3,000 success stories. And you can even search by condition. So if you're interested in irritable bowel syndrome or IBD, as it's called now, you can search it. You can search and you will find people that have really improved. So great. Wesley, adopting a carnivore diet. I eat ground beef and eggs and butter, but I'm getting enough nutrients like magnesium? Oh, right, it's a question. But am I getting enough nutrients like magnesium, potassium? Still deal with some constipation. Also include some fruit and peanut butter. Okay. I think this is someone from your channel, Wesley.
I mean, if you're consuming fruit, you will be getting enough. I'm not advocating for fruit at all, but I mean, you will. There's no way you're not getting enough magnesium and potassium if you're eating all of that. That's not the issue. I mean, I would suggest taking out the peanut butter for sure. I
Mm,
wouldn't say, never eat fruit. If you are one of those people that enjoy some fruit, eat local seasonal and ripe. I don't have too much issues with that. But for me, I could never really advocate for fruit because of fructose, because of fiber, because of oxalate and things like that. I
mm,
personally would, if you can, try and take that out, and maybe just stick to the seasonal ripe stuff that's local to you. But again, if you're eating enough red meat and eggs, you're eating to satiety, you probably won't have any problems. If you do, having a nice clean supplement of electrolytes and things like that, there's no issue with that. Some people do report feeling better after supplementation of electrolytes. I personally make some bone broth and things like that as well. So that's what I would say
yeah.
about
Yeah, I agree. I mean, with the fruit, especially, I did some research, and is there anywhere on the planet where fruit is grown and it's available for 12 months a year? And there isn't any
it. Mm,
place except for one. And for 7 months of the year, there are some apples, but they're called the death apple because they
mm.
kill you.
Right.
But yes, so if you were going back to that proper human diet, sort of, what did we evolve eating? What should we be eating that's appropriate? Then exactly that, the seasonal fruit. I don't eat any fruit. Fruit is not good for you. Certainly, modern fruit isn't. There's going to be a thing coming up in a minute that's going to tell you why I'm saying this. But looking at that, yes, looking at your picture, you look like you're by the sea. So sometimes there are supplies of meat that may be lacking in some of the minerals you mentioned there. Maybe it's very unlikely. From my phlebotomy side of things, I very rarely see anyone with a magnesium or potassium deficiency in the bloods, and I've seen thousands of bloods. So it's really unlikely. But if you've got some constipation, there's a few things you could do. You could up your fats, that'll get things going. You could look at a supplement. I often call magnesium citrate magnesium shit rate
Yeah, it
because
really is. Yeah.
it really will get going, um, which which is fine. Look at your hydration, electrolyte balance, but stuff like that. But yes, eating this way, you're going to be fine. I would definitely take the peanut butter out, and
Yeah.
personally, I would take the fruit out.
Yeah.
But if you're really stuck on fruit, then yeah, seasonal and not too much of it. Right, worthy Prince Lee, have you tried kefir
I haven't.
while being on the carnivore lifestyle?
I have not. I mean, I've actually thought about making my own because I get my own raw milk, which I've come off and have gone just back on just to prime for surgery. But I haven't. No, I've only had really in the very beginning stages some pasteurized dairy, which I then thought, well, no, I've learned some things, and I then started to have some raw cheeses and some milk to gain some weight back, which I did. But then once I felt able to consume enough, mostly just red meat and eggs and things like that, I kind of didn't have dairy for a very long period of time, months. And I've only just gone back on the raw milk. But though, I mean, I don't think it's a bad idea, especially if you can source some high quality and make your own stuff like that.
Yeah. So what do you think of pasteurized milk then? Do you avoid that?
Yeah, I personally don't really. I think milk is probably a mistake anyway. We wean off milk for a reason. That's a bit of an unusual thing to do. I understand where Ken Berry comes from, where he says, cheeses are a little bit better. Some of the proteins change a little bit. But if you've got like any autoimmune issues, I personally wouldn't have any dairy because you're always going to have like casein protein, which can be a trigger, whey protein, which can be a trigger. But pasteurized dairy is definitely a mistake. Certainly because these days we're pasteurizing at such a high temperature, and then there's also a lot of homogenization going on. You just haven't got your B vitamins, vitamin C, water soluble vitamins, the lactase to break down lactose and lactoferrum and stuff like would be beneficial to being tacked. So
Mm.
I don't advocate for dairy as such.
Yeah, and just in the chat, I'm going to put a link to my community that I run with Richard Smith, who's normally sitting where Lee's sitting. Well, not in Lee's house, obviously, but on the screen there. And I have videos about the whole process of dairy, from the cow to all the offshoots. So how
Mm.
it's made, why it's good, why it's bad, all that. It was a good little video, I think. Um, and somebody else was asking about, have you got a free PDF download? They've mentioned Dr. Berry. Dr. Berry has a free PDF download on getting started as well. I do a 19 tips video, how to get started, and also a free PDF, and it's all in that school, which is free to join, and there's loads of resources. Right, so that's good. Greetings from Norway, let's have a look. This is what I like about carnivore, is people are really bothered about everything else. They start to get into that rabbit hole of, screen time and grounding and all that. So R.A. Scott is, what do you recommend for toothpaste and mouth rinse?
I mean, I know a lot of people that do want to use some kind of product used bicarbonate of soda and things like that, just a small amount and lightly brush. I mean, I personally brush sometimes once, sometimes twice a day with just water and a toothbrush. That's it, just very lightly. I'm more than often actually can just use one of these. I and just use some wooden toothpicks to get little bits of whatever mix my teeth. I've got a gap here, but I've got some teeth that are quite close together, certainly at the bottom. So if I get any kind of little bits of meat and connective tissue stuck, I just use a wooden toothpick. But I personally would stay away from any real products that are sold that are, these toothpastes, and actually even worse than that would be mouthwash. It's just this kind of sticky stuff that will, if anything, will draw all the bacteria to your teeth. You end up getting all this yellow looking teeth as well, and some people then want to go and get that treated. It's a nightmare. We never had toothpaste. There's no need for it. I always say that I clean my teeth when I bite into a big steak. So
Yeah, absolutely. I'm the same. I have a TP, which does the bits in between, and a little bit of floss like that.
Right.
I don't really recommend toothpaste. If I did use a toothpaste, it would be just one with salt in, which I do occasionally use. And I don't mouthwash, but I used to do all of that. And when I was, basically my teeth were atrocious. I know we're British, so we're supposed to have rubbish teeth, but I was brought up on grains, no red meat, no saturated fat, porridge, freshly squeezed orange juice, lots of fruit, lots of veg, the whole thing. I didn't smoke, I didn't drink. Totally ruined my teeth, totally ruined my mum's teeth. She died of colon cancer. She, absolutely followed the guidelines. And like I say, by the time I was 40, I was pre-diabetic, I was fatter, loads of things wrong, basically. So this way of eating, I don't get bad breath. I don't have to mouthwash, which I did all the time religiously, 3 times a day. I used to use Listerine and all of that. Don't need any of that. And if you get rid of the teeth, the gaps, the bits in the gaps, if you get rid of those, you won't have any bad breath. So that's it. So toothpicks are brilliant, actually. Right. So RA said hi from Scotland, and I was replying to him. All right. Okay. Cool. It's live. If I get the wrong end of the stick about some of the comments, I do apologise. Follow Carnivore Muscle for muscle advice without malarkey. I like that. Thank you, Gaza. Right, here we go. Adam, can carnivore be done in 2 time frames of, say, 2 weeks on, 2 days off? I'm asking with Bart K and the Randall cycle in mind, can this make damage? Damage of coming off the diet worse? Well, the Randall cycle, just to explain to people, and this is really layman's, is the cell has a mechanism which, if you overload it with carbs and fat at the same time, if they sort of cancel each other out and you have a problem. That's sort of the Randall cycle in like a sentence, but it's a bit more complicated than that. I would not recommend doing 2 weeks of carnivore and 2 days off. I can't see what the benefit would be, unless it's some sort of lots of social pressure or peer pressure where, I had one client that worked in quite a highfalutin job. Whenever he went to New York or, the Japan or office, he was expected to sit down and eat with everybody. And he didn't want to be that guy, there's a guy coming from England who eats just steak. So, I mean, with Japan, to be honest, that's very meat heavy, to be totally frank. I mean, I went to Japan. I wish I was carnivore when I went, because I'd love it now. But anyway, the point being, he didn't want to be an outsider. He needed to be in the group. And so we agreed that if it was ever a work thing, go off carnivore. And he hated it. absolutely hated it. And he grew to really want to say, this is doing me no good. Because when he came back, he would be wrecked. I think, like the story you just told,
Yeah.
he realized that carnivore was absolutely optimal for him. So, anyway, I wouldn't recommend it unless you have a really good reason. So, a really good reason is if you can't do it, you're going to lose your job and not be able to pay your mortgage and put a roof over your head. So, that's a good reason for me. But what do you say, Lee?
Yeah, I mean, it honestly sounds like a lot of hard work with your body, and I mean, just the way you're going to feel. You might start to feel optimal, and then all of a sudden you're going to perhaps come off for 2 days and then try and amend that. I don't know what the motivation behind that would be, but yeah, I wouldn't recommend that at all.
No, the longer you do this, the longer you're carnivore, the more likely you are to ask that question. Because when you do come off, and I do, occasionally, I do bow to peer pressure and I do something that, isn't carnivore, and I regret it instantly. I absolutely regret it instantly. And those moments get further and further apart because I'm more and more determined to not
Yeah.
let that happen.
Mm.
So, in saying that, we went away for a week. For the first time, we had some time off, myself and my wife and the dog, for the first time in 5 years. And we only went local, but we went to the coast. And we did this 6.5 mile walk along the coast. It's Britain, all right? So we're talking lots of rain, lots of wind, idiots, but we wanted to do this 6.5 mile walk from one place to another, where we were staying to this place, Whitby. And when we got to Whitby, you could not get a carnivore meal anywhere. And
Right.
I was absolutely really, really, really hungry. And there was the closest thing that looked carnivore was a bacon, cheese, and egg sandwich.
Right.
And so I ordered that. And within 2 bites, I said to Jane, well, I can't taste egg or bacon.
Wow.
And the other thing I said, I couldn't taste it. It was just like a lump of stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah, anyway,
They probably put a load
right.
of potato starch in there, didn't they? Like they do with the
Yes.
cheese and the eggs and whatever they use. Yeah.
Awful. It's absolutely awful. Anyway, so there you go. Matthew, for everyone in Stephen and Richard's school group, which I put a link in, when you reach level 4, so what happens is you get points every time you post or every time you comment on somebody else's post. Watch the fruit and veg video by Stephen. It will show you why modern fruit and veg ain't innocent. Yes. Okay. So do join. I think that'd be nice of you. Right.
It's another interesting thing to look at when you look at the wild natural ancestor of the things we eat today. You wouldn't barely recognize some of them, you know?
Absolutely. I mean, that's partly what it's about, and it's also about the fact that if you think in the supermarket that apple is freshly picked, no, think again. It's probably over a year since it was on a tree, and this isn't just hyperbole and arbitrary figures plucked out of the air. These are the PDFs from the food growers
Right.
telling you
Yeah.
the whole process, the chemicals they use, the controlled environment, everything. And literally most of that fruit, they're also very honest about the nutrients, how they degrade. So, most apples, for instance, and what was the other one? Pears, there's nothing left. They are just basically a bag of watery sugar by the time you get them. And this is the food growers themselves. And all of that is referenced, by the way. So you could watch that video, then look in the description and actually see all of it. Anyway, right. So, can I just have a look here? What have we got here? Tall cedars. Gross. There is such a thing as six-pack implants. Yes, absolutely, there is. Have you spotted any question you want to cover, Lee?
I can't say that I have, to be honest with you. I can't see many questions anyway. People are chatting between themselves, kind of thing. But
Okay, let's have a look then. Okay, right. I put I can never pronounce this shilajit, which is like the sort of tarry substance that comes from the Himalayas. Do you know what this is?
I don't actually know.
Oh, all right. Yeah, you put it in coffee, basically.
Okay.
Anyway, so Latona Smith puts it in her coffee in the morning on an empty stomach. Is that okay on carnivore? I'm 51 and have been carnivore for over a month, started mid-February. Right, first, what you want to do with your life is fine. So, you know, if it works for you and you think it's giving you a benefit, and it isn't carnivore necessarily, that isn't carnivore, then if you feel great on it, don't stop it. But what I would say is experiment with stopping it and see if you feel even better, because you won't know unless you take it out. So it's used for things like constipation, strangely enough. It's got iron, calcium, copper, zinc. It's got all these in because it's like a tar from, like I say, from the Himalayas. Now, for those that are really strict carnivore and say, well, it's not an animal, we shouldn't be having it. Is water an animal? Is salt an animal? No, right. But we accept those as part of carnivore. So water and salt is acceptable. So we're talking about a substance here, which is sort of mineral, and which is what salt is. So it's probably the least
quite innocuous,
problematic thing. So there you go. Right. Let's have a look at this audio. I shouldn't have mentioned the audio book. Narrators on audio books seem to call the diet the carnivore diet. Yes, yes, that's very true. Yes, if it were then yes, the A1, we get that with the subtitles, because if we use the automatic subtitles, even YouTube, you know, it will say carnivore. Let's have a look. If it takes real people to read audiobooks, that would naturally lend itself to inconsistency. Leave some in, otherwise they may think you're AI. Do you know what? The software is amazing, all right? Because when I submitted my one, which was me doing the first chapter and a little bit of AI for a couple of chapters, that was picked up within seconds. In fact, a lot of tech, when you get into this side, when you're like a content creator, you find out ever such a lot about how they manipulate, how difficult it is, or how long things take. So one of the things I found out about Facebook was Facebook were offering a free, we'll check the entirety of your computer system with a press of a button for free. We'll tell you all the things that are wrong with it and all this sort of stuff, right? Press the button. Now, they deliberately put in a delay because they were able to do it in less than a second. And they when they tried it, too many people thought it couldn't have done anything. So so they deliberately made it so like it took 25 seconds.
That's believable.
yeah. So yeah, honestly, and I think on Tuesday, Lee, didn't you have a problem with YouTube on your Carnivore Team GB thing with a copyright strike?
Yes, that's right. Which is weird because I put up. So what happened is I put up this clip that just came up, and I altered it a little bit and concised it down, and just uploaded it and didn't monetize it because obviously I don't own the rights to South Park characters and all this kind of stuff. Just to say, you know, not trying to monetize it, just want to get it out there for a little bit of content kind of thing. But we put it up, and supposedly you're obviously allowed to put your own personal input in, talking over the top and offer opinions or before or afterwards over the top, whatever, and then it's sort of fair use. And we did have a little bit of a dispute kind of thing, but Jonathan's actually rectified that. He kind of disputed it with YouTube, and they came back and said, yep, it's fine, you can even demonetize it if you made any pennies before, we will sort of reimburse you. So I don't know, it's all over the place at the moment. It's quite difficult, but there's a new section now, isn't there, when you add your content up, when you create a new video kind of thing to put onto YouTube. I'm trying to think what it's called now. Altered content, is that right? Have you seen that yet, Stephen? Sort of
no, I haven't.
Content? It says, is there any altered content? I think it's basically pertaining to AI. So I think it wants you to click no. I mean, if you click yes, they won't allow it, I guess. But if you have to click no, I think. So it says, is any like certain content being altered to make it look like someone said something that they didn't say, and that's clearly addressing AI and all this kind of stuff. Because there's so many shorts at the moment come out, and a very common example will be someone like Joe Rogan, who's got this huge podcast. He'll just be like, oh, have you heard about this thing? And then it will just go away from his face, and it'll just be an AI voice that sounds like Joe Rogan saying a bunch of nonsense with all these different clips, and just fabricating this story out of nowhere. It's just, you know, no truth to it whatsoever. So it's I can understand. Yeah, I can understand why they've done it, because it's going to get a bit silly otherwise, you know.
Yeah, these deep fakes are quite scary, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly.
They really are. Yeah. So Andy's saying here, being skeptical of anything not from doctors is what got humanity into a mess. Absolutely, yes. Don't want to get too political, so we'll scare on to the next question, which is from Melted Wheelie Bin. Any views on the stem cells support supplements? Yes, I actually use them, and I always do this as a full transparency. I don't push them unless somebody asks. I will always talk about them because people have asked it. More often than not, in comments on YouTube, when people say, "There's no way you're 60," I'm 60 in May of this year, so a couple of months away. No way you're 60. So I always say, well, if you think I look really good and healthy and vital and all that sort of stuff, full transparency, I put it down to carnivore, but I have to tell you, I do take one supplement. And I've had a period where I didn't have the supplement. So I started to try it and it was great. And I did think it conferred a benefit, made a difference. And then we had a little bit of a problem with the roof. We moved to a new place and way too much money to repair the roof and all this sort of stuff, which we weren't expecting. So I couldn't afford the supplements for a couple of months. Then once the money was back, I bought them again. And I felt well again. Now, there's a confounder there. So those that are interested in nutrition science, that sounds like a good experiment. If you look at it on the surface, you had to supplement, you were fine, you couldn't afford it, so you stopped it for 2 months, you weren't as good, and then you took it again. Sounds like a really great experiment. But this is what I want people to start thinking about. There's confounders there, isn't there? Because when the roof went in, there was also a lot of stress. I was worried about the money. And of course, with all builders' quotes, the quote was different to the invoice, so you have to find money all of a sudden you're not budgeting for. That was really, really stressful. So I could have had that dip in my performance because of that. I do understand that. But what I would say is I didn't have all that crap when I first started it. And I felt a difference. So for me, I think it really works. And I'll put a link in the chat if anyone wants to check it out. And how it works is it just increases the amount of stem cells, adult stem cells that are being released from your bone marrow by as much as about 20%. So when you're 60, that's a big difference. Have you got any views on it, Lee?
Not really, to be honest with you. I haven't really looked into it that much. I understand sort of Bart K, and to be honest with you, I actually trust Bart K. When I saw him promote sort of the stem cell products, I think he has a lot of veracity and credence in what he says, and there's no way he would be pushing that. I'm not saying he's pushing it, but you know what I mean, for no reason whatsoever. So I think that there is certainly a benefit. And actually, he had issues with his eyes that he's managed to kind of get out of trouble with and things like that. So yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of benefits to it.
Yeah. So Maya here has done a super chat, and I think that's gone to your channel. So I think she's asking any suggestions on losing weight in menopause.
I mean, to be honest with you, I would just say eat the proper human diet. If you're eating the proper human diet and you do that for long enough, everything's going to take care of itself the way it should. The body's very, very smart, and eating nutrient-dense food that's non-inflammatory is going to fare well regardless, kind of thing.
Yeah, I agree. And I think this is one of the things when people say to me, can my kids do carnivore? And I'm like, yeah, why would they not? Why can they not eat salmon? Why can they not eat eggs? What would be the reason?
Day, actually, when I see kids eating carnivore, that's a highlight. When I see kids eating meat and eggs and that, I'd love to. I don't have children of my own, but we tried our best with Sky. He's my partner's daughter, but absolutely, children more than anything need carnivore.
Yeah, and I think if to be a little bit more nuanced about this, if you're suffering menopause symptoms, you can actually look at things like zinc. So oysters are pretty good, or you could include more fish, for instance. There are some things that more essential fatty acids is another thing.
I like for that as well. Heart's quite good.
Yeah. So yeah, I think if you're having trouble on menopause, that's where coaching comes in. Because what I do with people that I coach is I get them to send me on WhatsApp or email a picture of their meals throughout the day, every day, and then we can see what they're eating. And I can say, well, you're under eating, overeating, you're eating too much of this, not enough of that. This seems to be missing, blah, blah, blah. So there's loads of things you can do. But also, like I say, you could join the school community, which is completely free. And you could do that and you'll get people helping you. And you'll also have other members who have been through this, and they'll be able to say, oh, I was menopausal, I was having a problem. What I found was cutting out X, so it might be cheese or it might be, like we're saying, milk or something like that, yogurt. There's loads. This hour's really whizzing past. I'm trying to keep up, and there's lots of comments about the audio book, and it seems like inconsistency is fine with most people. So there you go. Right.
Yeah, it'd be quite refreshing, wouldn't it, to hear a mistake after all this AI? Like what they're saying, it's very true. Actually, they might think, "Oh, actually, that's nice. It's a real human being I'm listening to here."
Yeah, and I think that's, I've been caught out a couple of times watching things on YouTube, and you think that possibly is AI, and then you realize it definitely is AI because that same voice comes up somewhere else. You think, yeah, but that is a really believable one. So let's have a look. There's a thing here about hormones. All right, so I like to use hormones to explain it. Leptin being the satiety hormone and triggered by fat, the insulin being the fat storage hormone. Mix that with the science of gluconeogenesis, and it should help. So that, yeah, I mean, hormones play a big role. Now, what I'm finding is most people are talking in the chat to each other, and there's no real actual questions. So let's have a look. What's this? How do you account for the vegan doctor Michael Clapper's success and the knowledge he has?
Do you know? I don't know who Michael Clapper is actually.
I don't actually
I
know
was
that.
expecting Gregor there, but no. I'm not
So,
sure. I can tell you, but we also don't know exactly what foundation of health they're coming from, how long they've been really vegan, if they're sort of slipping things in here and there. Obviously, like you would know, Stephen, blood doesn't always indicate, whether they are actually optimally healthy with certain things, or they've got true deficiencies coming from certain areas and things like that. But honestly, I don't really know who you're talking about. So,
no, I mean, I've just searched him here, and he's an American physician. Let's have a look. Food Truth episode, plant-based. I think this is possibly him. Helps people around the world on their journey to health and well-being through a whole food, plant-based nutrition. I don't know enough about him to actually make a comment. But normally what happens is most people that are vegan long term, I don't know how long he's been vegan, as Lee just said, there are things lurking in the background. And we found that two particularly highfalutin vegans, one fell down on a carpeted floor and shattered his hip because we know that bone density is a bit of a problem. He's probably supplements, because after 3 years of being vegan, if you're strict vegan for 3 years, you will deplete all your storage of vitamin B12. It'll be completely gone. You need B12 for red blood cell formation. It's absolutely critical. So I don't know. Does he include other things like fish? We don't know. We don't know if he has eggs. But I don't know enough about him to answer. But I am sure I could find things if we had some research time. I've never found a vegan that hasn't got a problem in one way or the other after a long period of time. Even with my bloods, when I used to take bloods, I only had two people faint, and they were both vegans. Just giving blood made them faint because they're just, not vital enough. Right. The little apples of death. Oh, yeah. So Rick's picking up on what I was saying earlier. Yeah, the little apples of death. They're the only apples I think that grow for 12 months of the year. So, Lee, have you enjoyed this little hour?
yeah, it's great. Yeah, it's quite nice for you to invite me. It was a bit of a improvisation kind of thing, They've
Yeah,
gone
yeah.
upstairs, Lucy and Sky are upstairs, getting out of my way.
It's fun. Yeah, it's funny having you on and not Richard, because Richard does bring with him a lot of people asking very technical questions, which I'm really happy with. But it's just nice to have these sort of
He's got
conversational
vastly
Easter.
superior knowledge to me, for sure. He's he's got a great
Well,
understanding of science.
you keep your light under the bushel, Lee, and this is one thing I've said to you a few times. Your knowledge is fantastic. So I'm going to ask you. I saw a short of yours, and you mentioned if you're a vegan and you're organic, you've got a bit of a problem. Can you
Oh,
expand
right.
on
Well,
that?
yeah. I mean, there is no such thing as vegan diets, and there is no such thing as kind of vegan agriculture, because we do need the soil, right? And we can't, dirt's dead, and we can't grow anything in it unless you're spraying fixed nitrogen all over the place. So we need soil, and soil is alive, and it's only alive because of waste. And so often we've got the animal agriculture where we use the feces from animals to help nourish the soil, mineralize the soil. That's true of everything really, fossil fuels, and so it's all symbiotic. If you want to go vegan, that's up to you. I can't stop you. That's fine. It's probably going to be most likely for ethical reasons. If it's for health, it's certainly a mistake. But yeah, we can't grow healthy crops without livestock manure and death. Honestly, we need these animals that die and give back to the planet. That's what nourishes the soil, and that's what allows plants to grow and actually even if you're a vegan, you would be interested in this because a vegan, plant-based, let's say, you want your plants to have nutrients and not be depleted of nutrients. And so, yeah, we absolutely need animal manure and all of this stuff. It's symbiotic, plants, animals in harmony.
Yeah, it's nature. So we've done an hour. Thank you, Lee. I now go off to do half an hour on a different platform, which rhymes with Apple Crumble. And I put a link in there. So if you want to come and have a look at 8 p.m. in the UK time, I will be over there in a minute. And I will thank everybody watching on YouTube. And do you want to thank all your lot
Yeah,
watching on
appreciate you
YouTube?
stopping by. Yeah, thank you very much. I made the thumbnail today, so it's nice to see some of you caught that. But yeah,
Yeah, I think
easy
you've
to
got
everyone.
got 85 viewers from your channel, so that's good.
Cool. Yep.
Excellent. You're done now for an hour. If you wanted to follow me over onto Rumble and finish for 20 minutes, you can. But other than that, I'll let you
I
off
haven't
because
even
it's
got an
easy.
account. I haven't even got an account.
Oh no, I can give you a link and we could carry on like this. If
Oh,
you
I
wanted
see.
to.
Right. Okay. Yeah, can do. Yeah, sure, sure.
You want to do that?
Yeah, can do. Yeah, if you send me the link and I don't need any kind of apps or software or anything, yeah, we can go ahead and do that.
Okay. Well, no, it's StreamYard. So, all right.
Cool,
If you
cool.
want to follow on Apple Crumble, different platform, the link is in the chat. And I'll do it again, actually. Lee, don't use this one. This is just to watch, and I'll send you the link to come and join us in the studio. Okay,
Cool.
mate?
Okay, nice one.
Right. Bye, everybody.